Hello beauties, and welcome back to the Bumpy Bones Locksport channel. Now in this video we're going to be doing part 2 of my making the challenge lock for my brother-in-law and my nephew. So in part 1 we went through and we created the custom security pins here. And again, my brother-in-law and nephew are new to lockpicking, so I don't want to make this lock terribly challenging. I am using a KW1, KW5 keyway from Sparrows. And actually that's a really nice thing about using the Sparrows locks for these. You can get a set of progressive locks through Sparrows, and I'll throw a link to them in the description here. But you get 4 solid brass locks that you can change the core on, and you can even buy a recore kit that's got a bunch of different locks. And so these come with Schlage by default, and they go from 2 pins to 5 pins. And 2, 3, 4, yep, 2, 3, 4, 5. But they will support up to 6 pins. And once you get really good with them, you can get the recore kit, get like a Yale RW5, and KW1, and then there's another one, I forget what the fourth core, no, it's only 3 cores I think that you get with it. And so you can actually go through and recore them and do some really cool things with them. And for a set of 4 being $29, I think that's a really good deal. And so it's something that I am probably going to get a couple more of these in the future so I can make some more challenge locks and all that. So that's where we're at with this now. So what my goal is I want to make a challenge lock that will get my nephew and my brother-in-law kind of getting close to being able to do the American Lock 1100 lock. So they've been doing a lot of the master locks, the white through orange belt. They're getting ready for the green belt, which is the American Lock 1100 series. It's a good green belt lock. It's actually a milestone in my opinion. There are other green belt locks that you can go for, but the American lock, at least to me, has a bit of a milestone characteristic to it, just because of the security pins that are in it. And if I had my cutaway lock out here, and I don't remember what I did with it. Here it is. What's really nice about the American lock is that the actually I can do it this way. The pins, they got some nice serrated pins. So here are your serrated pins that come out of an American lock. But the spool pins also have serrations on them. And so, they are a slightly different type of pin or a lock that, is really kind of nice to work with. And when you get it, it's just that great feeling that, yay, I got it. The other characteristic with the American lock is on the key pins they do serrations. Now, I already started this video and then my phone decided to flip the video over, so I'm restarting it here. But what we're doing now is I'm going to go through the key pins that came with the KW1 keyway from Sparrows, and I want to add some serrations to them. And the reason why we have serrations on these key pins here is if you overset a pin when picking it, it mimics a serrated pin. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to know that you actually overset the pin. So it adds that next layer of challenge to it. So we're not going to do all the pins because, again, I don't want to make this terribly challenging. But I already got the first pin here. We're going to do the second pin. I might do one on these pins, but I'm not going to touch this guy. I don't have a lot of room to work with Dremel, and the pins aren't like the 9s, or I'll have to actually take a look and see what we got here, because this is a Schlage, I think. So, well, it's a KW1, but they're Schlage pins. So let's see here. We have let me orient this better. Let me grab my other. Here we go. So we've got a 5, 5, 3, 1, 3. So I'm not going to touch the 1 because that definitely is, you don't get a lot of room with them. So Chalet goes up to I think 9. It looks like. Yep. And so, and we're only dealing with like 5. So that's kind of like the bare minimum that I have room for using my Dremel as a lathe and all that. So let's go ahead and get cutting here. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this in here. And when you get this serious into Locksport where you're actually making your own pins, your own locks, having rekeying kits is really nice because it's spare parts. And as you saw, I had the spool or the containers here of extra security pins. I've got about 4 containers that are just full of pins and all of that from Schley Quickset. I actually just got a Yale pin. And then I've got the stock here to make my own security pins, and I actually want to make my own key pins. Probably in the next challenge lock I do, what I'm going to do is get a key blank, cut the key blank or myself. I'm not going to use any of the guides. I'm going to do custom depth. I'm not going to keep the depth standard. And do some really kind of fun things with it. So I got some kind of cool things planned. So do stay tuned for future videos. But let's go ahead and get grinding here. So I want to just make sure I got this on nice and tight. Yep. So let's go ahead and add in a couple more serrations here. So I want to do one there, one there. All right. I don't want to go too deep with them, so all right, I think that looks good. Oh yeah, that came out nice. All right, let's do the next one. And we're only going to do one pin or one serration on this because as you can see, I don't have a lot of room to work with. So we're not going to do serration on the small one. And you don't see that when you look at the American lock here. If I pull out like the 1 and 2, let's just go ahead with the 1. You'll see that these don't have serrations on them, and it's just because it's too small to get a serration on it. Even with the 0 here, um, those just don't have serrations on them. So I'm not going to do it when it's that small. Let's go ahead and make sure this is nice and tight. All right, turn this on. All right, got a nice serration on that. The other nice thing about having a repinning kit is if these decide to go flying on you, you have spares. But I want to use the originals just because they are a little bit different than the replacements. Sparrows didn't. It's a quick set keyway KW1, but that's using Schlage pens. So it's a little different. All right, let's go ahead and get our inspiration in on this one. All right. Yep, that came out nice. All right, so I'm going to pause the recording real quick, so I'll be right back. All right, so I always put my penning mat down for this part here just because if I do drop things now, I've got at least a little bit more protection and all that. So as we can see here, we've got all of our pins done. So let's go ahead and assemble this lock. Now, the one thing that I do have with this is, not sure where I put my, there are my pinning tweezers. The first pin here is going to be a little unique. So as you can see, the top of that I did slope during the last pin when I'm in the first video when I was making it. And the intention that I have with this pin here is that I'm going to put it oriented like this so that the flat part is down. But if they want a little bit more of a challenge, they can flip this pin over so that rounded part is down. And what that does is when you go to set the pin, you do risk oversetting a bit more or undersetting it, so it adds a little bit more of a challenge into it. And so that's going to be in position 1. So let's go ahead and get started here. And just make sure that we've got orientation correctly. Yep. So let's go ahead and pin up our core. All right. I always like to just do this a little bit just to make sure that the pins are nice and smooth. I always put it into a holder like this just to make sure that it turns nicely, because if I place them wrong or that it lets you know that there's something wrong. Most of the time you can visually see it, but sometimes you can't. And so I always make that little check there. So let's go ahead and record this. Now I'm going to use my easy loader from Covert Instruments. I'm going to send along a loader from Sparrows just because I'm giving them extra pens and all that so that they can play with it. And I got many of these, and so I'm going to send that along. But I use this to put the cap on and take the cap off. So let's go ahead and pin this up. So what we want to do is I'm actually going to start at the end here and go to position 4. So pin 4 is this pin, and this pin is a nice spool with a serration at the bottom. So I just want to make sure we get this oriented correctly here. That's going to go in there. Push that down. Let's go to pin 5. Throw the spring in. So spring 5 is a serrated pen. Let's go ahead and get that in there. Now the one thing when I make my pens that I do is sometimes I might see, and that's why I put my penning mat down, because you see I dropped that and that could have been real bad. But you see that little nub at the top there. I do keep that on some of my pens, especially on the pens that I want to make sure that that's the clear indication that that goes up. So I sometimes grind it down, but sometimes I just want to keep that on so that I know I intended that pen to go that way. All right, let's do pin number 3. Pin number 3 is a nice serrated pin too. Let's do pin number 2. And we got another serrated pin. And then pin number 1 is that fun pin. And just to make sure that we got that rounded side pointing up in the Bible. Yep. There we go. So the way that the locks, in terms of terminology, I jump back and forth, but I'm learning better now. So we got our cylinder, we have our key pins, we have the casing, and in the casing where the security pins go, those holes, that's the Bible. So when I mention the Bible in this context, I'm mentioning where the actual security pins and springs, and where when you put the key in, that hole that all the pins push up into, that's the Bible. All right, so let's go ahead and throw our core in. I am going to take the key out. And again, when you're putting your core in, unless you have all 6 pins in the key in, you always want to put this in at an angle. Because if you put it in straight, your security pins are just going to drop as you're pushing it in, and it can cause a little bit of a headache if you do that. Especially if you leave pin number 6 empty. So we got that in. I'm going to lock it. And I'm just going to do a quick test. All right, it works. And you know what? I should have put the cap on first, so I'm going to just take this and push it out so I can get the key out, so I can recore it, or secure the core. I love it when you don't think things through sometimes. All right, so it's locked. You know, I always do multiple layers of testing just because I'm a programmer by trade, so when you're programming, you're testing all the time, so it's just a habit for me. So with the Sparrows progressive kits, if you get their follower, what's really nice is they do have at the end of it here, it molded so that you can screw the caps on, because you have that little pin there. So if you don't have one of these, you can still do it, but it is a bit of a problem, especially with the fact that they embedded the cap here. If it was like if you look at a kick pin here, it's the same, but I can take my tweezers, push that down, and then by hand unscrew it. Can't do that with the progressives. You need this or something similar to that. I mean, you can, I guess, if you really are comfortable with it, but I have not been able to really do that by hand. All right, and so as we can see, the key is working, and we are done. So I'm going to polish this up just a little bit more. Let me just make sure I don't over tighten that or over loosen it. Yeah, it's a little tight. So let's bring this back by one. And there we go. Now the only thing that and just kind of talk about the progressive lock just real quick here. I love the fact that they have the different cores that you can put in them. I did run into one issue though in a couple of them where the hole that you put the plug that holds the cap in place here is sometimes a little too far in, and so it won't catch on the edge here. I've got one KW, what was that one? It was a R WR5 that I can't put in because of that. But I'm going to use it. You know, it's not that important as long as you're aware of it and are careful with it, so that you know what's going on with the retaining portion of your lock. But it's just one of those things that it's kind of nice to be aware of. So there we go. So I got that challenge lock done. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video. I'm going to polish this up. I've got a couple other little things to pack up for my brother-in-law and my nephew and get that out to them soon. So I hope everyone enjoyed this video, and I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you all later.